and welcome to the regular scheduled meeting of the Dayton Board of Selectmen. Wednesday, November 30th, 2022. It is 6 p.m. It is a hybrid meeting via Zoom and in person. The Zoom meeting information, the meeting ID 876-9038-3189. Passcode 190587. Phone 309-205-3325 US. Public input may be provided using the following method. Contacting the Board of Selectmen office at boardofselectmen@dayton-ma.gov to provide input prior to the meeting. Via Zoom call in by phone, or continued play will also be on Dayton Channel 9 and on YouTube at www.youtube.com/Town of Dayton. This meeting is being recorded. The listing of matters are those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. At this time, I will call the order. Mr. Pacheco?
Present.
Mr. Karen?
Present.
Chairman Hull is present. Could we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and also a moment of silence? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Since our last meeting, the following members of the Dayton community have passed: Ann Ashcroft, Sharon Bacon, Alice Elizato, Neil McDonald, Marion Pacheco, Teresa Rivet, and Barbara Travis. Our condolences and thoughts to the members of their families. I ask a moment of silence, please. Thank you. First item on the agenda this evening is the tax classification hearing. We will review, discuss, and act on the fiscal year 2023 Town of Dayton tax rate. I will entertain a motion to open the hearing.
Make that motion.
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor? Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Mr. Karen?
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. At this point, Chairman Easterday,
Yes.
would you
Call to
open?
order, yeah. So I call to order the Board of Assessors meeting at 6:04.
Take attendance.
Ms. Goulart?
Present.
Mr. Moore?
Present.
Eric Easterday is present.
Thank you. Mr. Mullen, will you be?
Yeah, so the annual tax classification hearing comes really at the end of our budget process every year. That begins begins in the November of the preceding year. It takes us to annual town meeting, to special town meeting, to the certification of the prior year's free cash, the certification of new growth, and then the approval of the updated values and the tax recap process. So we do have the assessors with us this evening, and to go through the FY23 tax classification hearing, and the assessors in the included PowerPoint laid out to the board and to the public really what are the mechanics of what goes into tonight's hearing, how the rates, how how the CIP shift, how the residential factor, is actually all, is all calculated and determined. And it's a very prescribed process, through the Department of Revenue, that depends on our total budget, on our total budgetary expenses as a town, less, the other dedicated revenue, like local aid, that comes from the Commonwealth, like local receipts, and then the remaining portion, which this year is approximately $20,500,000, we need to raise through taxation. It's important to note the roughly $597,000 approved at the special town meeting earlier this month, has actually gone in to help lower the tax rate. If we didn't, if the Board of Selectmen didn't propose, in the town meeting didn't approve, that additional almost $600,000 being used to offset the tax rate, then the total amount that we'd have to raise through taxation to fund FY23 general operating budget would be approximately $21.1 million. So, on the tax recap information we also provided to the board, we included that, and that is actually applied to the amount that we need to raise at the bottom of page 2 of the tax recap. But in terms of how the rates and the residential factors and the values are determined, I'm not sure if anyone from the assessors wants to actually explain that, and how we, and how for the last 2 years, we've been at a CIP shift of 1.66, which if we, if the board were to continue that logic, for FY23, the CIP shift of 1.66 with a residential factor of 0.9093. That in FY23 would lead to a decrease in the tax rate. The residential rate would become 13.96, and the commercial, industrial, and personal property rate would be 25.48. So I'm not sure if anyone from the assessors, Chairman, needs today, you want to add anything?
I don't need to, no. Yeah. Sure.
So if I may, I'd like to spend a couple minutes describing the process that we got here. I think one of the most important numbers that is overlooked is the actual levy. That is the amount that we have decided based on town meeting and budgetary requests. This is the amount of taxes we have to raise. We cannot control this figure at this time. The only thing we can do is decide how this is split up. We have a basic tax rate that we have calculated based on the current total assessed values of all the houses and residential and commercial properties. And what this meeting is all about is setting what is the CIP, is that correct? Yeah, CIP shift. So this is saying basically if we do a value of 1, that means we have the same tax rate against all residential and commercial properties. As we change this number to be higher, as it is right now, 1.66, I believe, we're going to be taxing commercial properties more than residential properties. The Board of Selectmen has the option to either raise or lower this number to shift more of the burden or less of the burden as they see fit. May I ask, did you guys get did you get a new one of these?
The comparison.
This is the one that I did.
Just this afternoon. I want to make sure you got,
No, I don't.
All right.
can we get one for them?
Yeah.
Please ignore the previous one because it just, it doesn't make sense.
This, yeah, this is just a little more clear.
Stephanie, anything?
Hey, you didn't get it?
Didn't she revise it this
She
afternoon?
did, yeah, but it's this one, see?
Yeah.
The different number.
Right, yeah.
We'll be glad to entertain any questions from the board at this time.
That was a good explanation, Mike.
Thank you.
Yeah, they're just digesting everything. That's fine.
Contemplating.
Yep, here it is.
Tempt me. So while the board is actually contemplating, one of the things that I wanted to bring to the public's attention here, is actually the fact of how our levy is allocated. In terms of our levy, the $20 million $500 that I mentioned, in terms of the application, the residential tax base here in town makes up almost 88%. Of the values that are classified, and then followed by commercial at 2.44%, the industrial base at 2.62%, and personal property at 7.02%. So as the board considers the different scenarios in the split. You can see how each of those scenarios has an impact on each of the factors as well. And as I mentioned, where we've been at the last 2 fiscal years has been a split at 1.66, which would, if the board were to entertain that this year in FY23, that would result in a 33-cent increase per thousand in the residential tax rate. They decrease.
Oh, I'm sorry. Geez, did I say increase? Oh, geez, I probably freaked everyone else. Sorry.
Freaked everyone.
But keep in mind that the tax rate, what really matters is the last column over here, which says that if we accept a 1.66, the average residential bill will have an increase of $286 if we keep it the same.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question or a comment. I was gonna ask
Yes.
what the current rate is, but you provided us with that, so the residents know for fiscal year 2022, it was $14.29, and if we adopt the same 1.66 shift, it's gonna be $13.96 for the residents, and for the industrial, commercial, and personal property, it's currently $26.17, and it's gonna be, if we adopt the same, $25.48. Means the rate is going down, but as we all know, the valuations have gone up, so I don't want to mislead anybody thinking that their taxes are going
That's one of
down.
the most common misconceptions that everyone has. Because the tax rate went down does not mean your property taxes go down.
Right.
The property taxes are going up by $286
Yes.
if we accept
Yeah.
166.
The dollar amount per household
Yeah.
goes up.
And that's an
what it is.
average, you
And
know, if
that's
you
an
have
average,
a
right.
Right,
you have a
obviously, it's
fancy
different
house,
for
it's gonna
each,
be more.
each home. That was only my only question or comment.
That's right.
Question I have, the split of 1.67, pros and cons. I mean, I know traditionally it's been 1.66. If it were 1.67, what,
If you change it to 1.67, that means that residential rates would go down
right?
and commercial rates would go up. So as per this
A little bit.
chart, instead of being $286 for residents, it would be $278. And instead of $885 for commercial, it would be $943.
No,
So you'd be reducing the residential rate by, like $8 and raising the commercial by 60.
Right, it just shifts a little bit of the burden. That's really what it is, residential back to commercial.
Can we afford to shift the burden to businesses?
That's
for you guys to
That's for you
talk
guys to
about.
decide
Yeah.
and talk about, yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that it generally has stayed pretty status quo.
That's what, I'm sorry.
Generally, one of the reasons I think why it stayed the way it's been for a while.
Yeah.
Because to shift that burden to the commercial,
Yeah, it's a balance. I mean, it is a balance.
I mean, we
yeah.
gotta raise the 20 million, that's where it comes, right? We gotta raise that $20 million, so it's, where's the burden line, right? And it's trying to split that.
Balance.
Yeah, it's really a balance for you to decide.
So in the past, we've had it at 1.65 for a few years, but the past couple of years, I think we've changed the shift to 1.66.
Right. Yeah.
And why did they change it?
I don't remember, maybe Mrs. Goulart can remember, but we looked at the figures, we wanted to reduce the tax rate for the residents. It increased obviously for the commercial and industrial, but we were trying to save the residents some taxes. But we don't have much industrial, commercial,
Correct.
personal
Right, so,
sources of revenue in the town, so
that's right.
I'm satisfied with keeping it at 1.66 myself.
Personally, I talk to a lot of residents that are hurting. We've seen this many different ways. Paying taxes, lateness, the amount of taxes that have been late, or people having a very difficult time coming in, asking for payment plans and trying to work to pay a tax that is getting more and more challenging for the people in Dayton. I really would like to see if we could help the residential taxpayer more than we have in the past. I'm proposing 1.67. And it's also not a significant increase on the commercial side of things.
So your recommendation is to reduce for the residents 2 cents on 1,000
Yes.
reduction in taxes. Which would reduce roughly their taxes, $8 a year.
You know, I mean, we need to also recognize the fact we don't want to drive business out of the community.
That's correct, because you lose business, now you've got a smaller pool of people to pay that levy. So you lose businesses and they're paying a lot of that levy, and they leave and say, I'm going to Taunton or wherever else the rate might be better, then that tax burden's gonna come back to the taxpayers, because now there's fewer commercial to pay. So that's the balancing act that you guys face, right? We don't wanna scare away those businesses either, because they're struggling like taxpayers are. Now, I'm a taxpayer in the town, right, so I get it.
If I may speak as a person and not of a member of the Board of Assessors, because I am a person, believe it or not. I want to echo what Eric just said, that I believe that I've heard from many businesses in the town that our business taxes are just too high. You mentioned, Mr. Pacheco, that we don't have very much. I would argue that part of the reason we don't have very much is because we tax them so high. If I were to make a recommendation personally, not as a member of the Board of Assessors, I would like to see you guys bring it down, go in the other direction, go with the
If I could just
165.
respond to that, we don't have a lot of businesses because we don't have the infrastructure for businesses. We don't have sewage going down 138, where we could possibly have Walgreens, whatever. So we don't have that, so at this point right now, I'm content with leaving it the way it is right now. I understand what you're saying, though.
Yeah.
So Ken, you want 1.66?
Yes.
And Lenny, you think 1.67?
I threw that number out there for discussion purposes, but I've heard some pretty good feedback. That's my goal.
I'd like to point out that either one of those motions are really token. You know, you're talking a few dollars. It's not for the year. It's not a cup of coffee.
It's minuscule.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Certainly.
what was approved at town meeting? Total budget, $28,226,875.01. The estimated receipts and revenues against that, $7,670,487.56. That's how we got to the $20,556,387.45 that we have to raise. So we've considered all sorts of revenues, state aid, local receipts,
The 597,000 that.
to come
Mark
up
mentioned.
with, I'll say, the net budget of 20 million. It's not gonna happen, it's not gonna help us this year. We've got solar farms eventually coming on board. There are two things to remember. The commercial property on which they sit will be taxed based at the higher rate. The property that is not used for the solar farm, in some instances, remains Chapter 61A or B. That doesn't change. So we have a potential to pick up some additional tax revenue from the commercial land that was in 61A or B that is now going to be taxed commercial going forward. The other tax thing that has to be looked at, and this is the amount of money that really needs to be discussed and determined the best way to handle it, is the personal property taxes on those solar farms. It's much higher than what the taxes will be on the real estate. Going down the road, as we get these farms online producing, there will be a substantial amount of money coming in based on a fixed payment schedule that the town negotiates ahead of time. So that's not helping us this year, but just keep in mind that although it's not an industry that employs people, meaning like another Raytheon or an ICI, that will be something coming down the road. And so in the future, the Board of Assessors and the Board of Selectmen will be looking at how best to manage that. And it may be that the real estate taxes are looked at one way, and the personal property taxes are looked at another way. Some communities put their, I'll call it their solar farm money, tax money, into special accounts to offset different kinds of payments. So that's good news going forward. Again, it doesn't help us tonight, but just keep that in mind.
Approximately, how many solar farms are there?
Excuse me?
How many solar farms are there?
Let me think. 2 on Richmond Hill that are up and running,
Yeah.
meaning tied into the grid. 1 on William Street that is not under a pilot agreement that is up and running. Brook Street is hopefully close to going on the grid. Cabral and Racine, Middle Street, Tremont Street, they have yet to break ground. 2 solar farms behind Arujo Farms that are under construction. And then we have the potential or planned battery storage unit up off of Maynard Lane that's going to be strictly a storage setup, not a generating, but there will be additional revenue there, I believe. There would have to be.
Any other input from the members of the Board of Assessors? Mr. Pacheco, any?
No.
Mr. Karen, any?
No. I think, the amount of business we have, I'm concerned about losing any more. And, but flip side of that is, it's gonna come back to the residents one way or the other. So that's why you think 1.67? I mean, 1.6.
Well, you know, a $60 increase, commercial, one could argue they could pass that off to the consumer. So I see it, you know, the savings on the consumer's end just being negated by the increase on the business end, because my understanding, talking to many people in business, that businesses don't pay the tax. They're consumers, the people who buy their products pay the tax. So reducing the rate to the citizen one, forces businesses to get more creative, but it also provides a little bit of relief for residents in this town that are pretty burdened with taxes. And I heard the word symbolic gesture. Yes, to some degree that is true. But it also sends a message that the members of the Board of Selectmen are sympathetic to the needs of the homeowners that are right now with the tough economic conditions that we all face are pretty strapped and pretty straight out. So, if I don't have, unless there is any further discussion, my understanding is that we close the tax classification hearing,
Is the
and
public,
then we would vote.
is the public entitled to speak at this hearing?
Yeah, it's public input, sure.
Yes, there would be.
Yeah.
Yes, come on up, Doug, please come to the podium. Yeah, thanks, Mr. White.
Yeah,
Because the audience can't,
okay.
they won't be able to hear. Thank you.
And maybe this has been discussed and I wasn't here for it, but I'm Doug White, I'm on 455 Forest Street. And I understand that a lot of it is because of the valuations of the houses went up. Did our budget go up in concert with the valuations of the houses? And if we did lower the tax millage rate already, even though the values went up, and you said we're gonna see a bill that's more, I think the amount was what, $260?
Approximately.
Approximately?
Yes.
Wouldn't it make more sense to bring that millage down enough so that that 260 goes away and we still have the same budget we had before? Or have the expenses of the town gone up so much that without that increase in the value of each home, that we weren't gonna make our budget?
If I can answer that, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly.
This tax rate is based on the budget that the residents passed this past June.
Okay.
So this is the budget that we now have to come up with a tax rate to pay.
So
that
we
budget.
need that 260 per household.
That's right, unfortunately.
Okay.
That's right.
So the lowering it to 166 or 167 is, like you say, symbolic, but it's not making the 260 go away.
Right.
And if we made the 260 go away, we're under budget.
That's correct.
Yes.
So what would we have done if the values of the houses didn't go up?
So one of the things I just want to clarify, we can't and don't, in accordance with the law, increase our budget based on values going up. Like we, from a municipal finance requirement and law, we're constrained, and we're limited how much we can raise our budget each year, based on the limitations in the requirements of Proposition 2.5. So we can only increase our general operating budget, raise through the raise and appropriate through taxation, 2.5% higher than the prior year. So if we
Are we under that 2.5%?
Yes,
Yes.
and we have been.
we have an excess levy capacity based on the budget that has been approved. We would in FY '23, regardless of what the rate, is actually going to be set at, we'll have an excess levy capacity of, I want to say, $764,000. So if the town wanted to, through the annual or special town meeting, we could have actually budgeted and proposed for approval an additional $764,000, which we did not.
And our free cash and our rainy day fund, I know that they were getting quite large. We couldn't move some of that cash to offset some of this? The state just did it because they collected more in state income tax and people are now getting checks back. Is there a way to move money from some of those to make that 260 come down to something a little bit more than symbolic?
We did. It was 600,000.
Mrs. Goulart.
The money that Mr. Moore is talking about did not come out of stabilization or capital stabilization. Those are savings accounts, and they're designated for capital-type expenses or emergencies. And you don't use your savings account to finance operating expenses, because sooner or later, you're gonna use all the savings and still have the operational costs increase, and where are you gonna get it from? And if something comes along, like a major, I remember 100 years ago, we had a furnace blow at the elementary school in the dead of winter, and that was when we had a local school department. And the school committee had to come to the Board of Selectmen and say, hey, we need 46,000, and we gotta do it yesterday. And the Board of Selectmen called a special meeting, and the townspeople voted. It came out of one of the, well, it would have been capital stabilization, because, it would have been stabilization, because we didn't have capital at the time. But what Mr. Moore is referring to, that was some of the money that came from Dayton Rehoboth and did not go into stabilization. That money was taken off the top, and the money that was voted for stabilization and capital and OPEB and all those things that money was in addition to what we got back. It is, I think I joined the FinCom in 2002. We have, number one, never used stabilization for operating expenses, all right? The other thing is, the Prop 2.5, that was voted many years ago. This town has never, ever brought before the voters of this town an override for 2.5. Because the feeling was, it doesn't have a prayer. We have used debt exclusions for bond issues when we had to, but we have never done that. And there were times back in the early 2000s, we were right up against the levy limit. You heard Mr. Mullen say tonight, we are below it by 700,000. Quite frankly, in this state, that's remarkable. And even the Department of Revenue has pointed out the fact that I will call it, conservative fiscal operation of this town over the years, at least since 2002, that's a lot of selectmen, that's a lot of issues, that's a lot of FinCom members. But I've been involved with them one way or another. And all of the expending that has taken place has been conservative. We have never exceeded it, and the people have supported it. So, personal opinion, going back to 2002, capital stabilization, which we have now, and stabilization, those are sacred accounts. You don't use them for operating. And this town also is remarkable in the fact that it has been able to put money aside for the OPEB. And that's something not many communities can say they've done either, so.
Thank you. Mr. White, though, I do want to answer your question in regards to, from what I've learned in the 2 years that I've been on the board, about stabilization and capital stabilization, good financial practices. And the bottom line is, what is a sound number to use? And that number is 10% of your budget. We are currently at about 6.5 in both stabilization and capital stabilization. To say that we need to save more, yes.
Is it 10% for each, or is it 10% aggregate?
No, 10% each,
Okay, so we're 3.5 under.
correct. And what we have done over the, more so this year than last year, is come to a consensus between the Board of Selectmen and FinCom that each year in the budgetary process, we would dedicate free cash specifically to both of those accounts. And then once we got up to the 10%, then we would talk about where we would go from there. But we still need to,
But the taxes are going up because the budget went up.
Correct.
yes,
So it's not all because the valuations of the houses went up.
Correct.
So we
Correct.
are getting a tax increase because we have a higher budget.
The rate may go down, but the dollar amount may still go up because the budget went up.
Because
So
we
even
have a
if
higher
values tanked,
Right.
we still need 20 million to pay everybody.
Yeah, because these are moving numbers.
Correct.
Values and then what we get charged
Correct.
for
A lot of
each
taxpayers
housing.
make that mistake.
But the
Yeah.
budget went up, so wherever we were, we had to get more money.
We gotta get to 20
So
million.
we increased the budget, so we're increasing the taxes,
The dollar
no matter
amount.
how
Correct.
we wordplay this
Yes.
about valuations.
That is correct.
This is what I pointed out at the beginning of the meeting, saying that this is really driven by the total budget. That's what decides what the tax rate is to begin with. What we're talking about today is just who bears that burden.
That's the balance.
Yes.
Correct.
thank you. Is there anyone else in the public who would like to speak on, Mr. Moore?
I have
You
one
are
more.
a member of the public.
I'm sorry.
You
One
may be
little-
an assessor, but you are a resident of this town
I just
and a
wanted to point
taxpayer.
out one, this is as a Board of Assessor, I want to say, just a tiny way, another way to look at this is under the 1.66 shift, that as of this year, the residents will be getting a 5% increase, and commercial would be getting a 10% increase. Just a different way of looking at it, that you might realize if you open your bill, it's gone up by 5%, or it's gone up by 10%. So if you change this shift factor, this CFB factor, that 5% may go down and then that 10% is gonna go up, or vice versa.
questions?
No, I don't have any.
Any? No one out there in the audience? With that, I will entertain a motion to end the tax classification hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion made in second. All those in favor, Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Mr. Karen?
Is an aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. And I believe you also need to do the same.
Motion adjourned.
Adjourn or close the hearing?
Close the hearing.
Motion to close. Motion to close the tax classification hearing?
Second.
Motion made. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next, I will entertain a motion. And a number. I make a motion for the town of Dayton to adopt a commercial, industrial, personal property shift of and a residential factor of for fiscal year 2023.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion for the town of Dayton to adopt a commercial, industrial, personal property SIP shift of 1.66 and a residential factor of 0.9093 for the fiscal year 2023.
Do I have a second on that motion?
Can we wait a second?
Pardon?
Can we wait a second?
Certainly.
I'd rather see the 1.67.
There's no second.
The motion fails for lack of a second. I will entertain a motion. Mr. Karen, are you
Yes, I'll make that motion of 1.67.
1.67? And the residential factor,
Would be, 0.9079.
.9709.
I'll second that motion.
Motion's made.
0.9079, I just wanna make sure that 0.9079, I think you may have said-
90.
Yes.
Okay. .90709. So the shift of 1.67, residential factor of .90709. Mr. Pacheco seconds that motion.
So you'll
I
have
think the extra zero,
0.9079,
not 09.
Okay, 79, thank you.
sorry.
Mr. Pacheco seconds that motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. I believe the Board of Assessors need to make a motion to adjourn their meeting.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next order on the agenda is Council on Aging Veterans Services Recognition for Veterans Week events. Ms. Powell, Mr. Haig, could you come up, please?
Yeah.
Okay. Over the past couple of weeks, the Board of Selectmen have noticed the outstanding job that both of you have done in the service of our veterans. And this evening, we would like to acknowledge them. Later on, I'll be asking for a motion to place a letter of commendation in both of your files. So we want to thank you for expanding the Veterans Day celebration and services. It went from a 2-day breakfast and, of course, the November 11th to a whole week of activities. And that was incredible. Mr. Pacheco?
Yeah, I just want to say to Ray, I know you had the Veterans Breakfast that you participated in, and you did a great job there. There's a lot of volunteers from the town and the Veterans Day events. I wasn't able to attend any of the Council on Aging events, but I've heard good response for those that did attend, so, and we haven't done that in the past, as the chairman has indicated, so I think you did a great job for the veterans in this town, so.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Ditto to what he said. This is my first year, and I attended the breakfast for the veterans, and just the conversations I had with them, they were so proud and so thankful. And like Ken, I haven't been able to attend the Council on Aging just because my schedule doesn't permit. You seem to have the events when I'm not here. But I will get to more. But thank you both for what you've done.
Thank you.
Mr. Hague, it was a really classy ceremony and a breakfast. I also want to thank Pastor Jack for watching my back while I went to get the proclamation. Ms. Powell, you replaced the legend, and the Council on Aging hasn't missed a beat. You've done an outstanding job. We're very thankful to have you on board with us.
Thank you very much. I have a good team behind me. Thank you.
Can I say one more thing?
I'm so sure.
The stories that the veterans were telling me, and I got to admit that the only thing that Veterans Day ever meant to me was it was a day off from school. And my brothers, who were all veterans, changed that. But the gentlemen and ladies who were there this past weekend, or last weekend, just reinforced those opinions that I have. It wasn't just a day off from school. And it's too bad that a lot of people just look at it as a day off.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I will entertain a motion that we request Town Administrator Mullen to draft a letter of thanks and appreciation for the outstanding job that Mr. Hague and Ms. Powell did during the Veterans Week.
Thank you.
So,
Would I be able to just add a friendly amendment, because like I have to jump in and just back Ms. Powell up. Her team as well, they're incredible. Like, and if we're gonna do letters for Bella, like, and for Ray, like the Council on Aging team as well, they're just incredible. So if we could add them as well.
I'll make that amendment.
Mr. Mullen, I have excellent support in my office also.
That's- So, and so the both offices
Yes.
in the entirety.
Yes, I like that idea.
Thank you.
No, I don't.
thank you.
Well, everybody who helped us accomplish it, the DR students who came to sing for us, any of the volunteers who helped us to get the programs accomplished. So there's a lot, but they don't have to have
No, but you can convey to them
Yes, we will.
Absolutely, I will.
the appreciation of the Board of Selectmen.
Yes.
That's what they've
We
done.
will. Yep.
Second his motion.
Motion made and second. All those in favor? Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Mr. Karen?
It's an aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. This evening, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. This evening, the Dayton Police Department will be adding a new member to its force, a new member to the police family. It's very highly respected in this community. I am entertaining a motion to take the appointment of Nicholas Farrier out of the regular order of business.
I'll make a motion that we take agenda item number 10 out of new business, item C out of order.
I second that.
Motion made and second. All those in favor? Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Mr. Karen?
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. At this point, I will introduce Chief Sean Cronin.
Board, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, so with the leave of Chief McDonald back in the summer, we've had a vacancy in patrol. So one thing that I always stress that we have the advantage of is having a reserve officer program. We can develop we can see what we have, we can mold, and, you know, it's an invaluable thing that we've, you know, quite frankly, a majority of us have come up through. So, Nick joined us back in, I believe it was June of 19. I remember my first phone call to him after he took our test, and I think I just woke him up, and I don't think he was working. I think he was just kind of hanging out, not doing much, and talked to him about, you know, the reserve officer position, and he didn't have any training. So at the time, I talked to Chief McDonald and said, hey, why don't we give the kid a shot at dispatch, get his feet wet? And he declined. Now I'm all set. And then I don't know how long after that, not much longer, but he called back. He's like, oh, maybe I'll give it a shot. So that was the first inkling that the kid had a little gumption and he wanted to get into this. So Nick came on again, like I said, June 19. He did some dispatch work for us. And throughout that time, he's been incredible. Reserve Academy trained. He's actually post-certified. He has a full-time full-time certification through the MPTC. He has his post-C certification, which is huge now, as you know. So we are ecstatic that Nick has agreed to join our force full-time, and he will be going into the rotation starting Sunday.
Great.
Excellent. So, welcome aboard.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Do you want to say anything, Nick?
Yes.
Certainly.
I just wanted to say thank you to the town for all the opportunities that were given to me to be a dispatcher and a reserve officer here. It's meant a lot to me, and I learned a lot. Without that, obviously, it wouldn't have jump-started my career in criminal justice. I wanted to say thank you to the department and everybody who I've worked with here. They've always supported me, and without them, it wouldn't be possible. And also my family and friends. It means a lot to me. So.
Thank you. We have one formal thing that we must do to make it official. I will entertain a motion to appoint Nicholas Farrier as a full-time police officer on the Dayton Police Department.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion made in second. All those in favor, Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Mr. Karen?
Is an aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. Congratulations and welcome aboard.
Are you old enough? Is he old enough?
Yeah, he makes it.
I think I got shoes older than him.
Maybe.
Keep up the great work, guy.
Be safe.
We're happy. I will entertain a motion to return to the regular order of business.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion made in second. All those in favor? Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Mr. Karen?
Is an aye.
Chairman Hull is also an aye. Next on the agenda is public input. Just want to explain a couple things before we open it up for any public input. One, we are limiting input to 5 minutes. We are asking that if you are a town employee and it is town business, that you schedule it with Town Administrator Mullen so it can be placed on the agenda. And also, the chairman reserves the right to end public input for, should there be disruptive behavior or words in the discussion. With that being said, is there anyone public input? This is, thank you.
Nancy Goulart, 631 Gray Terrace, North Dayton. I have two announcements. First of all, PMC Jimmy Fund, when that is going on the first weekend in August. Long before that, I'm beating the bushes for people to support it. The goal this year was to raise $66 million. They raised in excess of $69 million. And everybody who contributed, every police department, EMTs, fire department, everyone who provided services, the volunteers at the regional high school, which is the main lunch stop, all contributed to the success of that. So thank you very much. It just goes to show you the kind of support that this bike ride has. The other thing is, we had a very good turnout for Lights On. Stormwater Committee had calendars, and I gave out a number of them, and I just want the public to know, the extra calendars that we're not giving out are available at the police station, the fire station on Main Street, Town Hall here, the town clerk's and treasurer collector's area. There's a few in the Board of Assessors office, and there will be some available at the transfer station because people will be getting permit to burn, and also the landfill stickers will be renewed. So as long as they last, excuse me, there will be calendars available at those places.
Mr. Goulart, thank you very much. Mr. Marvel?
Yes, thank you. Hi all, Dave Marvel, 102 Forest Street. I got a question. So the past few years I've been trying to videotape the Veterans and Memorial Day services over by the flagpoles, and every year we are having a problem with traffic. This last time when I was trying to record the Veterans Day Parade, I was fighting the weather, whether to bring out the equipment early or wait for the last minute. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to hook up. I had problems with the audio as far as the speakers, so I had to pin everything with the camera. By doing that, I had a lot of traffic. The traffic there was sort of like just sort of drowning out my audio. So when I tried to edit it last week, it was just too much, automobile, truck noise. It was just too much to put it out there in public. Some towns, what they'll do, and I know it takes an act of Congress, they'll block off a certain, we block off Somerset for 25 minutes or so to do the ceremony. I think it's fitting for the veterans to have something like that because you sort of want to have that time to reflect, to think about, our brothers and sisters, what they did in past wars for us, and to have a truck just throttling down the street, it's just not a good thing. And I don't know what can be done, but if we can just a half hour blocking the road like for Memorial Day and Veterans Day, that would be great.
Mr. Pacheco or Mr.
Yeah, my question is, because it's 138, maybe it's for the police chief, who can stop the traffic on 138 today?
Yeah, so I would have to double check, but my gut tells me DOT is gonna have to have something, some input in that. I don't know if it would be possible. I totally, would Mr. Marvel go?
Yeah.
I totally understand what he's saying,
Yeah.
because it is a challenge.
Yeah.
But that may be tough. I'll call Tom Ferry. He's pretty good with DOT and regulations, so. And if not, I'll reach out to District 5, whatever it is. I think it's gonna be a challenge.
Chief Cronin, could you take that task on and report back to Town Administrator Mullen about how you're progressing with that and any obstacles that may come up?
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. Mr. Marvel, did you have a question? Lauren?
I just had a follow-up question. Lauren Bear, 1645 Maple Street. For the Lights On, when we did the parade, it was blocked off for a moment. I know obviously it's not as long as 25 minutes to a half hour, but how are we able to block the road off of the parade versus a ceremony for veterans?
It's a duration thing. It's
Okay, it's because it was shorter.
very temporary. Yeah, I think we only have it maybe 5 minutes just to get the two sides in. 25 minutes is tough because it's a,
State Highway.
yeah. But I will check. It's worth a shot.
Mr. Marvel?
Just one last thing, what's great about these Memorial Day services and all of them, it's like, we had some great speakers this last time around. I think one gentleman was called, Preacher Jack or something like that, and he talked about his time serving in Vietnam. It was an interesting story, but every time a truck came by, it's just sort of like, just drowning him out, So I appreciate you gonna look into it. I know it's not easy,
Yeah.
and we'll see what happens.
Really try.
All right, thank you, sir.
Mrs. Goulart? Yes.
So Chief Cronin said is exactly what has to happen. When we had to have the big closure for the 300th anniversary parade, it is Tom Ferry working with the police chief, and he knows who to contact through DOT. Now, that was hours, hour, half, 2 hours. And one of the reasons why we didn't do the whole highway, we went Main Street to Elm Street and came out just south of the new police station. So we wouldn't be blocking that much of 138. But Mr. Ferry knows how you do it, and he can manage it. So he's the contact.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else with? No. Okay. Next on the agenda, announcements.
Announcements. Please note that the town-wide parking ban is in effect from November 1st, 2022 through April 1st, 2023. No vehicle shall be allowed to remain on the street so as to obstruct snow removal. Dayton Police Department will take notice. The Dayton Historical Society, and I'm a member of the Dayton Historical Society, will be holding an open house on Saturday, December 10th, 2022 from 2 to 4 p.m. They're located at 1217 William Street in Dayton. The Town of Dayton's food bank distribution will be held next on December 17, 2022, located at the Town Hall, 979 Somerset Avenue at the lower level. That's all the announcements.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda, Town Administrator's report.
Yes, I can. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a few updates, two that are listed on the agenda and two that aren't, that we just actually received in. But in the first one, we just, and the board just approved and set the FY23 tax rate. And as I mentioned earlier, already we're beginning the planning for the FY24 budget. And this year, having a real focus on zero-based budgeting as well, that I just wanted to walk through with the board. Can answer any questions that the board might have. And then actually beginning next week with the department head meeting, we're going to roll this out to our departments as well and bring everyone up to speed on where we are. But just really starting where we are now in FY23. In June 2021, we created a financial team that consists of myself as the town administrator, the town accountant, the treasurer collector, the principal assessor, and Ms. Brady. Since that time, in June 2021, we've had even more transitions in our financial team with our treasurer collector, and then another transition in our town accountant. So really just now, and it's actually incredibly exciting, we're really having the huge opportunity to really dive in and really create and build something that I think and hope and I'm excited that will be really long-lasting in terms of our financial team. But just where we are through the first quarter of the fiscal year, we haven't identified any significant issues with the year-to-date revenues, but downgraded FY23 revenue projections that we discussed and planned based on last spring affect a lower budget excess levy capacity. Our building and inspection permit revenues have been downgraded for each of the last 2 years based on the trends and where the market is. But this year in FY23, those revenues are meeting the revenue projections and forecast. The initial trends, in FY23, just looking at the first quarter, they indicate a strong ability to meet, but also not far exceed projections. And these are the things we're looking at now, as we begin planning and contemplating where we'll be in the kinds of expenses that we're already anticipating may increase next year. So, as I mentioned, we're beginning to plan for FY24 in terms of our revenues and expenditures, especially with the $209,000 in the BP school building project debt service that will begin being assessed in 24 as well, which I'll get to later in the presentation. But in terms of our FY24 budget process. Essentially, we are beginning it now. I just mentioned we'll be meeting with departments next week. We'll be establishing budgetary perimeters, distributing the worksheets in the month of December. And at the end of the month of January, we anticipate proposed budgets being due to myself and the town accountant. Towards the end of that month, we'll have a better idea, but not a complete idea, what we're forecasting in terms of revenue. Why we won't have a complete rock solid projection is because our real revenue forecasting, our most current revenue forecast will depend on the FY23 excise tax commitments, which we will know in mid to late February as well, and that's a big piece of our local receipt revenue. From March 23 to May 23, and actually through that, even before that, we'll be continue on, actually starting in and continuing the Selectmen and the FinCom budget review process. What I've seen, and I think what all of us have seen the last few years, is really the need to streamline that process, to make it less cumbersome and more streamlined. And I anticipate that hopefully we, at the beginning of the fiscal year, will be able to sit down with the FinCom so can jointly be able to discuss a process that will work better and that will be more streamlined than the process we've seen. And then that brings us to the June 2023 annual town meeting. In terms of really more detail of where, based on current expenses, where we believe our revenues will be heading early on now, in terms of planning for FY24, early projections do point to next year as being much more challenging than in the past budget years. Going back to actually what we've seen as Ms. Goulat was discussing in the early 2000s. We're seeing trends in much more limited new growth in local receipt revenues, and which in turn placed more pressure on the levy that we discussed earlier to fund municipal and school operations. And just as an example, we can see just in the last 5 years where we've been and where we are with new growth. As I mentioned earlier, one of the themes that we're entering the FY24 budget process, really focusing on which a concept and a proposal brought forward by Selectman Karen, is a zero-based budgeting model. Zero-based budgeting is a budget process, really that asks our department heads and all of us to build a budget from the ground up, and so essentially starting our budget at zero. Where we, in terms of the line items in the proposed spendings, we really need to make sure we're justifying, and having, those line items really justified, rather than, as the article I've cited, rather than just focusing on incremental change. And so that's, in many ways we'll be building our FY24 budget from the bottom up and really looking at the expenses that are included in every line item. And so the zero-based budgeting model, it really represents a plan. So we'll be asking our departments, we'll be asking our boards and committees to really treat their FY24 budget process really as a plan for where they see can anticipate and what the needs of their department are going in to the next fiscal year based on current services provided and so forth. It provides an opportunity for really proposed budget requests to be rationalized, and it allows all of us really to more clearly evaluate yeah, like appropriation needs and identifying efficiencies as we build the budget. And like in the next slide, we've already created like a budget backup, spreadsheet. Like where for every line item we will be asking for justification on expenses. And that's just an example of that. One of the things, as I mentioned a few moments ago as well, we also, based on the March 5th vote, like for the BP school building project, like having been approved, like we're also gonna see in FY24, and we need to continue planning now, like for the debt assessment, you know, which will be really first applied in FY24. So the total BP project is a $305 million project, as we know. 125.5 million is going to be reimbursed by the MSBA, and of the remaining approximately 180 million in project costs, Dayton will be responsible for 24.7 million, which will include the principal and interest and the increases in the interest rates as well that just happened. That will be assessed over the next 30 years. I mean, as I mentioned, we're going to see these debt assessments begin to be applied and assessed in FY24. In FY24, our anticipated debt assessment is $209,000, and then incrementally and actually pretty significantly, it will ramp up over the next 3 years thereafter, from $209,000 in FY24 to $600,000 in FY25 and 6 to $700,000 in FY27, $800,000 in FY28, and then in FY29 and beyond thereafter for approximately the next 25 years after that. The debt assessment schedule will level off, and the level off, even though the wording sounds accurate, it just actually doesn't, you know, I think represent the significance of that amount right there in the amount of $865,000. Like, and you can see, like in the following chart, when we were trying and making sure that we got the information, all the information about this project out to folks, you know, at the beginning of this calendar year, there were hypothetical debt schedule proposals that we, you know, were trying to anticipate and plan on then. But now, as the school has been approved, the school is going out now for bond anticipation notes, which is normal, in advance of long-term borrowing. BP is getting you know, a more accurate idea of debt of debt schedules based on the cash flow needed for the project, but also based on current interest rates. And you can see in the changes here, of how, with what we were initially anticipating could be a debt schedule, how those have been really modified based on the debt schedule that we received from BP at the end of October. So, and you can see in FY24 will be an increase in that debt assessment of approximately 53,000 from the 155,000 we were initially anticipating. You also see a more incremental ramp up, really to the 865 where it does level off. which according to the anticipated model that we were looking at in February, there was a much more rapid ramp up to the approximately $800,000. So this is more incremental, but in my opinion, it really, and it doesn't. It really doesn't take away the need to really continue planning and really preparing to get a hold of this now.
Not to interrupt you, but adding Freetown, will that make a difference?
It's a big hypothetical that really will still depend on the annual enrollment.
Right.
It could. Again, we're hopeful that it will, but until we see the annual October 1st enrollment.
Yep.
That really still, and these numbers actually still have the ability to fluctuate every year. Hopefully, the hope is that, so with that in Freetown, these numbers in that portion of our assessment will decrease.
Will go down.
But based on enrollment and based on who applies and the reason that they apply, it could actually increase as well.
Okay.
This debt assessment, in the accompanying schedule, is based on FY23 enrollment. So this assessment, planned out for the next 30 years is actually anticipating, which is actually, I think, unrealistic in many aspects, of our enrollment for the next 30 years being the same as it is in FY23.
Right.
So inevitably, it's going to fluctuate, which, and we can do all the planning, and streamlining in the world, but hypothetically, just in terms of 5 kids, from year to year, very easily, could be very close to another $100,000 increase in terms of an assessment.
Right.
So yeah, there is some really, I don't want to say volatility there, that we'll never be able to get away from, but there is a risk as much as we try to plan and anticipate. There always is gonna be the chance for those numbers to fluctuate.
Now, with the fluctuation of those numbers, how do we accurately predict or put together a budget?
It's I would say there's no silver bullet, but off top, I would say that even more regular communication with the district. I also think, a ramping up or in a greater building of the CTE programs at DR, and that has really the ability to really, while it's important really that we meet the needs of we meet the needs of all of our students. If DR is able to attract more kids to stay at DR in the future, that helps as well. But from a planning perspective, over the last few years, our enrollment at BP, there was a fairly significant spike, I believe, in FY21. But over the last 2 fiscal years, our enrollment at BP has been pretty static. But it is impossible to predict the next 30 years.
Now, is it possible for us to get a date where the numbers would be validated so that we can plan?
So The chart on the right is the updated data schedule that is the most final and represent the anticipated interest rates for the bond anticipation note, and I believe the interest rates for the anticipated long-term bonding as well. I need to confirm the latter. So the yellow chart does give us our most up to date and I think close to the number figure what we're gonna need to begin planning for. But again, I mean, enrollment, annual enrollment, it could have those numbers fluctuating on an annual basis. Like in FY23 when we discussed earlier, we discussed FY23 excess levy capacity at approximately $674,000. But once we back out the approximately $600,000 that we applied, essentially as a one-time payment of free cash towards tax rate, backing that out really gives us, and this is a new term that I'm just really defining on my own, but like a so-called operational excess levy capacity where, we really, so even though in FY23 we're gonna have a tried and true excess levy capacity of $764,000, $600,000 of that is in one-time funding that we can't responsibly plan on every year at this point. We have an FY23 operational excess levy capacity of 165 that after backing out, that includes, as I mentioned, backing out the $600,000 to reduce the tax rate, but that already also includes absorbing almost $100,000 within the levy as well, our current levy, for the Bristol Aggie school building project debt assessment as well. So already, in our existing levy capacity, which right now we do have $764,000 in excess, so we're actually doing a lot of things and absorbing a lot of things that I would say aren't actually typically absorbed in a levy. So based on where we'll be in a few years and where we are with that 165, and even going forward into next year with an expected debt assessment of $209,000, we've already exceeded what we have available in excess levy, in our excess levy capacity. So the efforts we're already anticipating will require, in terms of dealing with how we're planning and preparing for this to take effect over the next 5 years, the efforts to balance our budget will require cuts. It will require the creative look at the restructuring of various costs, and the potential for a proposed debt exclusion as well. Earlier this year when we were getting information out about the BP school building project and the vote on March 5th, we did warn about a slippery slope where education budgets, like for DRBP and the Aggie, could be on track to significantly crowd out, our ability as a Dayton town government, to fund our core government functions and capital projects. We're gonna really, like in the next year and beyond, we're really gonna need to take a very methodical and thoughtful and conservative approach to, really looking how we plan forward. And that will include looking to cut and restructure costs, examining opportunities to streamline costs, continuing to look at opportunities for regional and shared services as well when we do have the ability to do that. But I mean, at this point in, in November of 2022, my personal opinion is that we have a lot to do to really do our due diligence and look internally. But I mean, at this point, it's actually it's actually too soon to determine whether or not we need a debt exclusion or need to propose a debt exclusion at this point. So I know that's a really sobering overview, but I just really wanted to provide it to really really make sure it was understood, about how we're planning and preparing for FY24 and then the ensuing years as well, because it all ties together.
Mr. Mullen, is it allowable to fund the BP project from both operational and a debt exclusion at the same time?
Yes, and that would be, frankly, very similar to how we have funded the debt assessment on the police station. We have in the residents of the town approved a debt exclusion to pay for the debt assessment on the police station, but over the last 5 years, we've been responsible to pay that debt. We have not, as a town, through the leadership of the Selectmen, in the many boards that, have been on the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee, we as a town and town meeting, have very strategically and knowingly not, actually allowed, the impacts of the debt exclusion to be felt. We've always paid, the debt and the bonding and the borrowing, for the police station principal and interest before we have allowed the impacts of that debt exclusion to impact the tax rate. And I really believe that's like a credit to the town, and it's a way, that could be a way, to plan for the future like we did, for the new, for the new police station, without having to get into a very real and dire situation as a town. So that is an option, and we've done it before.
Thank you. Mr. Pacheco?
I have no questions.
Mr. Karen?
No, I think it was a great presentation.
Yes.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of unknowns.
Yeah, there are, but I mean, as many unknowns, I mean, we just, we are dealing with it, and we have, everything we do now and plan now, is going to affect every decision down the road. So it's all, everything we do now is going to snowball and impact how we go forward.
Yes.
Mr. Mullen, thank you. It was an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
I do want to address some concerns that I've heard in the community in light of the fact that 3 other communities, neighboring communities, have rushed into voting on debt exclusions. And I want the voters in the town of Dayton to understand that the Board of Selectmen, and you saw a prelude to the efforts of Mr. Mullen this evening, looking at this seriously, and we will present multiple options to the voters. We will do due diligence to present you as low a tax burden as is possible. And as we go forward, we encourage public input in ways that we can do that. It's not going to be just simple, throw it out there for a vote, and if it fails, cut $800,000 of services and people and the like. We are going to take this very seriously because it impacts not only taxpayers, but employees. So we are not going to rush into a decision. It's going to be well thought out, and we are looking for your input. Thank you.
So with that, I do have one other update before, I do get to more good news. But one of the updates I wanted to provide quickly this evening is an update on the implementation, of the municipal fiber grant that we received last June. We've been working with TMLP, to implement it, and right now, currently, our efforts have been focused on working with National Grid to get access and ensure access to the dedicated municipal and public safety space on our National Grid and Verizon's existing poles in our town, right away. And in the license agreements that we have with National Grid, they do allow for dedicated municipal space and public safety space. But right now we're we're in the process of trying to, frankly, to ensure that access, with National Grid. We had a call with National Grid representatives 2 weeks ago, and they at a very early level were trying to insist on the fact that to access the dedicated space I mentioned, that we as a town would have to pay what is called make-ready cost to access them, even though all the license agreements that we have, and the selectmen have entered into going back to 1953, have actually already ensured, that we would have the dedicated municipal space. So we are working through that. The fire chief and I had a call a few weeks ago with National Grid officials. We were caught off guard at their early insistence, on the town being responsible, to deal with make-ready costs, and I have since followed up with our dedicated National Grid rep, who's the National Grid rep specifically for Dayton. I've asked her for her assistance. I re-brought to her attention, which which really is not a surprise, the fact that we do have license agreements dedicating municipal space, and I'm awaiting feedback from her. And then, based on that, we may, and the board may, have to consider, other options in the future to be able, to really, to make sure we have and continue that access. We are in a little bit of a bumpy road right now, but I do know other towns like the town of Rehoboth, have recently gone through a similar process. And they've been successful in their plots, and they've been successful with their projects. But this may be a little bit of a process that I just wanted to share with the board.
Thank you very much. Mr. Pacheco, any questions?
No, I don't.
Mr. Karen? No.
With that, I do have two other very quick, actually three very quick announcements. Number one, we found out today that the efficiency and regionalization grant that we applied for at the beginning of the month to look at the opportunity for potential efficiencies and working with the Dayton Water District was awarded to the town today, in the amount of $90,000. So we were very successful in that. I also want to recognize the efforts of the Chief of Police over the last, Chief, I think over the more than the last year, you've been working to implement and secure grant funding for the body-worn camera program. And we've been back and forth with the state grant funding. We're very excited to share this evening that earlier this week we were awarded the total funding, I want to say, Chief, in the amount of around $51,000 to implement that program as well. So I really want to thank the Chief on that for his efforts over the last 12, 13, 14 months. And then finally, and then I'll shut up. I just also wanted to recognize a memo that was sent earlier today from Fire Chief Chris McGee to the board. That says, "Dear Board, it is with great honor and pride I am writing this letter to inform you that effective on December 11th, 2022, I am promoting the following personnel to the following ranks within the fire department. Full-time Lieutenant Eric Gagnon to captain, and full-time firefighter John Gothia to lieutenant. These personnel bring a great deal of expertise, knowledge, and training to these positions. The service they provide to this department is an asset to this town and to me. I look forward to continue to work with these fine personnel in the future. Please join me in congratulating these dedicated members of the fire department, and that is respectfully signed, Fire Chief Chris McGee." And that is all I have this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any questions? No. Okay, next on the agenda, old business. Town Administrator's evaluation process.
So at the last meeting, we had the first review of the timeline in the process that would incorporate this year's performance evaluation for myself as town administrator. And based on the prior documents and backup we provided, we're proposing this evening on November 30th, 2022, that there be a formal vote to approve the town administrator performance evaluation process by December 7th, 2022. The performance evaluation form would be distributed to the board on the same day of December 7th, 2022. The town administrator's completed self-assessment would be distributed to the board members on December 28th on December 28th. The performance evaluations would be due from the Board of Selectmen and sent to Ms. Brady. and then on January 11th, there would be a review and discussion of an aggregate summary of the Board of Selectmen evaluations. So we just wanted to follow up on the process and the discussion that we discussed at the last meeting, just so we can keep this process ongoing, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
I don't have.
Before I entertain a motion to approve the town administrator's performance evaluation process, does anyone have any questions, concerns? I'd like to see any changes made to the evaluation itself in the process for evaluating the town administrator.
I think whoever did it did an excellent job.
Yeah, we discussed this the last meeting, so
Right.
I'm okay with the evaluation.
Okay, thank you. With that being said, I will entertain a motion to approve the town administrator's performance evaluation process.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor? Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Mr. Karen?
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. Thank you, Mr. Mullen. Next on the agenda is community representative appointments to the Dayton Rehoboth Regional Elementary Advisory Committee and Fire Station Building Committee. Did you have any applicants to the Elementary Advisory Committee?
We have not at this point, Mr. Chairman, and that is why, we wanted to add it to this week's agenda to remind folks, to remind our residents, we do and are looking for a total of 6 Dayton residents, who 3 of which will join the elementary advisory committee, and 3 who would join the middle school advisory committee as well. So we do need a total of 6 applicants, and we're really hoping, with everything happening with the school district, that will be able to attract some really new energy, an input from our residents and community members.
I'm curious, because I know in Taunton this wasn't a problem. Has anyone reached out to the PTO presidents?
I have.
And they couldn't get 3 from each side?
What I heard from the PTO was that they would share the solicitation. And the opportunity for folks to be involved. I haven't, but we haven't heard any interest at this point. And so I can definitely follow up, because this and this work and what we have ahead of us is that important. So.
Yes. I was just curious if Mr. Rooney and the principals of those schools could also reach out to their
That's a good
PTO
idea.
or to their parents in general. I mean,
Yeah,
we're
that's-
talking, good number of parents. Find 3 parents in an elementary school, 3 in a middle school. They don't necessarily have to be on the PTO. That would be really important. It's very important in this day and age. The parental involvement be a big part of the government process with schools. We have read the horror stories throughout this country that are going on right now. So I'm encouraging parents to be involved. And anything we can do to send that message to the schools and the parents, either through Mr. Rooney or through the Selectmen's office, be appreciated. Thank you.
And just as a follow-up to that, we do have proposed two proposed representatives to the Fire Station Building Committee, but in terms of the composition of the new fire station building committee, we are looking for 2 members from the community at large as well. And we don't have any applicants, for those 2 community at large, positions at this point.
Have we posted it?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Brady.
And when is the closing date on on that posting?
It's rolling until all the positions are filled.
So it won't close any earlier than the next meeting?
No.
I'm pretty confident we can find a couple people in the community who are interested in serving on this very important committee. We have a very difficult decision to make, and a much-needed decision. That South Fire Station really needs some work, or a decision made to go in a different direction. So that is extremely important. That will impact the tax base. So it's something that we want public input, public involvement. We need it, so that people feel, one, there's transparency, and the public is fully informed the direction, whatever direction they choose to go. What is the makeup of that committee? Besides, a couple firemen, the chief, obviously.
The composition of the committee that the board approved at the last meeting was the committee will consist of 1 fire department call member, 1 fire department full-time member, the fire chief, 1 member of the selectmen, 1 member of the financial team, the building commissioner, facilities manager, and 2 members from the community.
Okay. It's not on the agenda for this evening, but I would ask that it be placed on the agenda for the next meeting, that we select a member of the Board of Selectmen to serve on that committee. They have a lot of work to do. My understanding is it's going to be not just the decision working with the feasibility study, but also, once a decision is made, what direction to go, that will be the building committee, correct?
That is my understanding as well, Mr. Chairman.
So there won't be 2 separate committees, there'll be just one. Are there any questions, further questions?
You're gonna put it on next?
Yes,
Okay.
we have to. We can't vote tonight because it's not on the agenda. Any other further questions regarding either one of those committees? Okay, next on the agenda is Selectmen reports. A couple things from the Water District. One, the the Main Street project, as everyone is aware, is progressing. In regards to the road, it is going to be the condition that it is for at least the next 6 months, as they progress not only with laying the pipe, which they're doing now, but also the tie-ins. We ask that the public be patient and understand that we're trying to keep the cost of this project down. So to put a preliminary coat to smooth out the road temporarily, to dig up the road again in the spring, is really cost prohibitive. Secondly, they're laying new pipe, and as a result, it is disrupting old pipe, and the water may be a little discolored. The quality, for the most part, has not changed, and it certainly will not be a risk to the public. At the fall town meeting, a request by the Water District to spend $85,000 $600 for a water quality study as requested by the EPA was tabled. The reason being that it is going to be necessary for the Water District, the Dayton Board of Selectmen, Town Administrator Mullen, and their town administrator, to meet with the counterparts in Somerset to discuss a timetable when this well sale is going to take place. There are a lot of uncertainties at this time, and we need a clearer picture and a timetable before we spend $85,000 that, if not planned correctly, could turn out to be a waste of money. So we will keep you updated. And we're going to, through the Water District and the Board of Selectmen's office, reach out to Somerset for further discussions. Dayton Rehoboth School update. 1, to the Dayton Rehoboth Regional High School Band and Choir. Thank you, thank you, thank you for the awesome job you did the other night at Lights On. It was deeply appreciated. And secondly, I'm happy to report, through the efforts of Superintendent Bill Rooney and several members of the Dayton Rehoboth Regional School Committee on both sides of the aisle, that they are in the process of taking their disagreements that were heading for the courtroom and bringing them back inside to have those discussions between themselves. And obviously a savings to the taxpayer and legal fees, and coming to a gentleman's agreement on how the issues, in particular Rehoboth and the Dayton Rehoboth Regional School District, can be resolved. And that is very encouraging. The atmosphere and the willingness for the towns and the school department to work closer together has increased a great deal since Bill Rooney has taken over. I have nothing further. Mr. Pacheco?
Sure, just give a quick update on the Library Committee meeting that we met on November 16th. Further on the agenda, we're going to be voting on the possibility of hiring Plan B construction company to do the exterior of our new library. So we voted unanimously to support Plan B construction company to do the exterior work. We had a meeting on October 26th. We invited all those that were interested in bidding for the project. 6 companies were interested, 3 showed up at that meeting. Mr. Aguirre was present, and we went over everything that needs to be done on the exterior of the library. After that, we gave them until initially November 10th, and then we changed it to November 14th to send in a bid, and we received 1 bid. It was a very good bid. You'll see in the paperwork that we have that they have a lot of good references from different towns that they've done work for. One of those towns happens to be Dayton. They replaced the roof on the fire station on Main Street in 2015, I believe. So we recommended unanimously to have Plan B go to the Board of Selectmen, and hopefully that they would, Plan B construction, I should say, because we know what Plan B could be, Plan B construction company to do the exterior work. Secondly, it was brought to our attention that the library director, Jocelyn Tavares, and our ADA coordinator, Jonathan Gale, are applying for a grant to do, they get some monies to do the ramp inside of the library. It's $20,000 grant. There's two grants we can apply for, $20,000 and $50,000. I think they're actually going to apply for both. We'll see how we do with that. But it's to do, number one is to put the ramp that's going to go up to where the kids are, at the stage where the kids are going to have their part of the library. But secondly, they're also going to be asking for some computers and other things that will help people with disabilities to either hear something or visually be able to see something that they will help them with their reading skills. So we're looking forward to that grant to be applied for. I think the closing date might be February, and the final date we'll know sometime in May whether or not we got that grant. So things are moving right along. Our next meeting is December 6th. It's a very good committee that the board appointed, so I'm looking forward to working further with them. But we'll talk further about the construction company when we get to that item.
Thank you. Mr. Karen?
I know we're going to discuss this in new business, so I won't repeat myself, but two things came out of that meeting this past week, and one of them was the sticker price. And the board has a recommendation, the committee has a recommendation to our board, which we'll discuss in a minute. And another thing that we voted on was whether the textile, mainly the textile, should be required a town sticker as well. And I know you were there more for it than I was. Was there anything else that, I think those were the two principal things that came out of
those
it.
were the two time-sensitive things
Right.
as well. And one of the things just really to piggyback off that, there, as we've discussed in prior meetings as well, there have been significant changes, in the restrictions, in the town accepting old mattresses, and also in our limitations and also opportunities to accept our textiles as well. And so we will have changes, and we'll be implementing changes at the transfer station, and based on the next agenda item as well. And we're already in discussions with the town treasurer as well to use the annual the mailing of the new tax bills at the end of December, to use that as an opportunity to perhaps include an insert in the bills that really lay out all the changes that are being made in the new requirements at the transfer station as well. So we're working on that behind the scenes too.
One of the things that we were concerned about is mattresses. The cost has increased substantially, and we're paying at a much higher cost than what we're taking in right now. Obviously, we're reading off the new rates, but we saw a large increase in mattresses this month, and they think it was because of the high school sale that we had. It far exceeded our total what we anticipated.
We've had about 30.
30 mattresses, and we were basing our opinion in our figures based on, based on a certain number of mattresses that we would be selling back to these recycle companies, and just places to house them. I guess there's a large pile of mattresses that are useless, that either have bed bugs or stains that can't be returned, and those are going to have to go into the cans for disposal, and we're going to be paying top dollar to dispose of those ourselves. The town will in fees. We're getting nothing from the local vendor for those. It's just a charge for those, so we're not taking in any money for those disposable ones. The mattresses have to be kept dry and cleaned, and right now they are talking about coming up with a requirement that it's an inspection sheet that the transfer station attendant will use to judge what condition a mattress is in, so that a resident will know this is why it's being rejected and you have to take it back home. They're concerned that back home might mean Forest Street or Tremont Street or any other street in town that people have the ability to dump their mattress. They're talking about taking pictures of the mattresses and license plates that are refused, so that if they're found on the side of the road, they can go back to the culprit. So a lot of good things came out of it. But again, we're going to discuss it in a minute, and I'll save my opinions for that.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a question on
Yes.
that meeting? Was there any discussion on the brush, charging a fee for the brush?
Not charging for it, requiring a sticker for it. And I guess they do recycle, chop it up for mulch.
Chip it up, yeah. Thank you.
The Solid Waste Committee has been working very, very hard on a very formidable task. The mandates from the state have made this almost a part-time job for a volunteer committee. Between doing the research and meetings, there are many issues that are going to be coming up in the months to come for deliberation and for votes. Trash bag fees, brush are only two of the many items. The state has imposed mandates, but hasn't provided a whole lot of funding for those mandates. And if nothing more, those mandates are taking up a lot of man-hours. And as a result, example, the brush that comes in must be chipped and removed each week. That ties up men from the DPW. That's manpower that means they can't be working on the streets because they're working there. So creating a transfer station that is economically sound is taking and will continue to take a lot of work. And those meetings are open to the public.
Yes.
Public input is strongly encouraged. With that being said, any new business, Board of Health recommendations for transfer station fees and sticker pricings, the final reading. We have before us communications from Solid Waste Committee and from the Board of Health. In particular, it talks about stickers. However, it's my understanding that we also must vote on the transfer station proposed additional fees. Is that correct?
Yes, this will be the final reading as well,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
And before we get into the sticker fees, I'd like to wrap up the transfer station additional fee structure that we've talked about over the past few weeks. I will read the proposed increases, then we'll have discussion, then a vote. Box Springs, twin, double, queen, king, from $15 to $40. Regular mattresses, twin, double, queen, king, $15 to $40. Crib mattresses would now be $20. Ottoman would be $10. Sectional couches would go from $20 to $40. Sofa couches would go from $15 to $20. Television consoles would go from $20 to $40. Toilets or sinks would be $10. A car tire will go from $5 to $10. A truck tire will go from $10 to $15. A tractor tire will go from $15 to $20. Trailer fees, single axle will now be $50. Double axle, 15-foot maximum, $100. Bulky items,
That's 16-foot max, right?
16.
I'm sorry?
16-foot maximum.
Yes. Bulky items, including rigid plastic. Change to miscellaneous items not listed. A half pickup truck load would go from $10 to $25. A full pickup truck load would go from $20 to $50. And regarding construction debris, a full pickup truck load, 8 foot or less, would go from $75 to $100. Now, for clarification, this does not include the sticker price, is that correct?
Correct.
So that, these fees would be in addition to the sticker price. Is there any discussion on these proposed increases?
They, oh, go ahead, Ken, I don't mean to.
No, I don't have, we've discussed this twice already, so
Yeah,
it's the third time.
again, these fees were not just pulled out of thin air. A lot of the items that we are taking a loss on because the fees hadn't been increased in years. So they were determined that through the Board of Health, which operates the transfer station now, these are items that, like the ottoman, nobody was charging. So these fees for tires, prime example, have gone up, but we have not. So some of them were at a loss to us. So I would recommend that we would accept these fees as the recommendation from the Board of Health.
Are you
Which,
making that in the form of a motion?
I will make that in the form of a motion.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made and second. All those in favor? Mr. Karen?
Aye.
Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye.
So when will these fees take effect? Is it immediate then? Is that,
I believe January 1st.
No, I think it's immediate.
Immediate?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but I think it's as soon as the selectmen voted on it.
Yeah, these would be effective immediately. The stickers would be effective for calendar year 23.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. Next, we have a discussion in regards to the sticker fees. And I also believe there'll be a discussion upon what will be included in the sticker fees. I have recommendations from the Solid Waste Committee and the Board of Health, and I would like to read these into the record. From the Solid Waste Committee, please be advised that the Solid Waste Committee discussed the calendar year 2023 transfer station sticker fee during the committee's meeting on Monday, November 28, 2022. After diligent review and discussion, the committee voted to recommend that the transfer station sticker fee remain at $15 for calendar year 2023. The committee also voted to recommend that a transfer station sticker be required for all residents to access and utilize the transfer station, including the disposal of leaves, grass, brush, and textiles. The Solid Waste Committee respectfully recommends that the Board of Selectmen consider the same. And from the Board of Health. At the Board of Health meeting Tuesday, November 29, 2022, the board voted unanimously to recommend the Board of Selectmen keep the current transfer station sticker fee at $15 and that a sticker is required for the disposal of any item. They also voted unanimously to recommend the Board of Selectmen approve the transfer station fee increases recommended by the Solid Waste Committee, which we have just voted. Any discussion on this before we vote?
Nope.
It was, the solid waste committee is 9 people. The Board of Health is 3, and I did not agree with, but I was the only one, with the fee staying the same. I thought an increase to $20 was acceptable. Considering the transfer station runs at a large deficit of hundreds of thousands of dollars, I didn't think it was unreasonable to ask the residents to pay a $20 fee. As far as the brush and the textile, again, I didn't agree with, you're asking somebody to donate their clothing or textiles so that it keeps it out of the transfer station, as well as it, with something we're going to be able to make money on. So we're asking them to donate their clothing in exchange for, which is now illegal, disposing of it into the trash bins. I thought that to make them have a sticker and pay $15, $20 to donate just didn't seem right. We're going to have a mass mailing, like Mike was saying, encouraging people to come and use these bins, but yet we're going to say you have to pay to donate something. And to me, it just doesn't seem right.
As I said earlier in the evening, the taxpayers of the town of Dayton are really against the wall. Their fees, taxes increase, they've had it. And they're hurting. I see that hurt when I go to the food pantry and see all the people that are accessing food from the food pantry. I see that when I hear that the largest number of taxpayers in Dayton's history were late or had trouble paying their taxes. I hear that when I'm at the transfer station and people are complaining directly that the fees are really getting to be too much. I've spoken using social media in several groups about the transfer station proposed fees, and they understand the mandates. And the people that I spoke to were quite comfortable what we recommended and voted on a few minutes ago. In regards to an increase on sticker fees, and I'll throw this out there even before the vote is taken, an increase on the trash bag fees, I can't support that. There was a discussion at the solid waste about increasing brush fees. And one of the things that people on that committee wanted was to see the actual work hours that were involved, and they're significant, to remove, chip the brush that comes in and grind the stumps. So that was one item, whether there'll be an increase or not, that was kind of put off simply because we don't know what it's really costing the town to break up and remove the brush. On the issue of textiles, we want people to donate. Is it costing us any money to remove those textiles, or is the town making money off
The
it?
town would be making money on it, not substantially.
But we are making money,
It will cost us money if people don't recycle it.
okay. So you reach a point where if you charge a fee to donate, they're less likely to donate.
Right. That's my opinion, but I was one of 9, or one of 12, 11, who determined that the fees should include that. I just have a problem with asking people to donate it and then charging them to make a donation.
I agree, but I also have a concern that
And I'm just talking
It's not-
textile.
No, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. But unlike brush, it's an expense to get rid of the brush,
Right.
an expense that is incurred by the town. On the idea of textiles, it's not an expense. We actually make money because we take
Correct.
those textiles and we give them to a recycling company, and they give us money.
Correct.
You know, many years ago, I had someone tell me, fee, tax, surcharge, it's all the same.
Well,
It's coming out of the taxpayer's pocket.
At least the fees that we've increased are user fees. So it's, if you create trash, you're obligated to dispose of it. And if you create more trash, then you should pay more.
I
So,
understand that,
as far as those fees go,
but I'm talking about textiles.
right.
And I know one business in the community that has kindly put out textile bins for people to donate to. I'm just wondering, could we get more creative with our bins or working with businesses so we don't have to charge the people a sticker fee
Sure.
to,
One of the things, the clothing has to be in good shape. And one of the things they talked about was the fire station, because it's manned. And they could keep their eye on the recycle, as opposed to just putting it in somebody's parking lot where you'll, as you know well aware, you'll have all kids' toys in there and everything else. So there is a possibility that, again, we would have to decide if we're going to allow that, because right now we don't, but putting a third one someplace else in town that can be not manned, but in view of, like I said, the fire department would be a prime example,
or managed.
managed.
Because I know in talking to the person that works at the transfer station, his concern about maybe putting the bins up towards the front, so people would just come in and do it at the gate.
Right.
And this way here not have the ability to dump other trash someplace
Right.
else. It might be a little difficult for him to supervise.
I don't think it's gonna be a huge problem with, if somebody's coming to donate a bag of clothing, I don't see them coming with a large truck full of trash that they're going to hope that the transfer attendant doesn't see them dump it into one of the canisters. I don't want to exaggerate the problem, but I don't see it as being a big issue, as maybe the attendant does.
I have not heard, and I do know the owner of the business on 138 who has a bin on his property. I've never heard him really complain that it was a problem. And obviously, those bins have been there for over 20 years. So I think if there was a problem with the bins that he has, he would have pulled them out of there.
Yeah.
He does that as a public service. He doesn't make any money doing it. It's to help a couple different groups, Salvation Army
Sure.
and an Earth group. So I'm just wondering if we could, if the idea of moving them to the front would be acceptable, or getting more creative and put them other places. So people who don't want to pay the $15 sticker fee
Right.
to donate textiles.
I just don't want to see them all over town. I think they're an eyesore, and if we don't know this company as, well, there's a reputation they're very good, and they're not going to let them overflow. I think they're going to dump them weekly, Mike, or bi-weekly. the bins?
Yes, on a regular, schedule based on when they
Right.
fill up, and as they see trends.
A
One of the
trend.
things, just if it's okay if I jump in, I think
Sure.
one, like in terms of other bins out in the community, we actually have a town bylaw.
Right.
That prohibits them. There could be like a slippery slope that we want to protect ourselves from going down as a community as well. Based on the bylaw, in the requirements of the bylaw, what actually make the bins work at the transfer station is because they're on town property and they've been approved through the contract by the selectmen. Just as one member of the solid waste committee, the textile, the requirement to have a sticker for the textile was something I went back and forth with. And frankly, like I still am. One of the things that that did impact my vote, frankly, is the current manpower challenges we have up there. That being said, the bins are actually going to be dropped off tomorrow. We already have a place designated for them that under the canopy there, so they'll be protected. Everything will be organized there. Based on us really launching out in this process, one thing I do, I do personally believe that we do require a sticker for leaves, grass, and brush. But one of the things, because we really have no baseline for where we are with the text, so for the textiles and the drop-off, frankly, even though I voted another way, I think, really what we're doing here is a pilot. We may adjust things along the way anyways. So if we have an issue with the bins, hypothetically, if we don't actually charge for a sticker to access the bins, and then we see a problem, we always have an ability to adapt from there as well. So
Thank you.
I just wanted to throw that out there.
So
Yes.
we could come back and revisit it.
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you. Any further questions?
I don't have an issue with keeping the transfer fee, the tag fee, $15. I think it's reasonable. Like I said, I would have loved, not loved, I would have liked it to have gone to 20 if there was a vote that established that fee, that would have been fine. But I don't have an issue with keeping it $15.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can't increase everything, so,
Right.
we're increasing some fees, and I think the residents some of them are gonna be a little upset about that, obviously. But we can't just increase everything, like the leaves and the brush, I think at some point we're gonna have to charge for that.
Right.
But at this point, let's find out how much it actually costs the town. It is a lot of work.
Yep.
I've dropped off a lot of brush there, so I see the piles, so I know it's a lot of work. And at some point, I think we're gonna have to start charging for that, but
Yep.
right now, I think we've got a good start on this. And I thought the sticker price would be increased, I'm glad it wasn't, so it may have to at some point,
Right.
obviously. Let's look at the numbers, I'm sure the Solid Waste Committee will be doing that, but right now, I'm satisfied.
You talk about state mandates, one of the mandates was from EPA that brush has to be removed once a
Yeah,
week.
I don't understand the reason behind that, but I understand you can't have it build, to a big pile, it's gonna catch on fire or
Right.
whatever. But on a weekly basis, that's,
With that being said, I will entertain a motion
I'll make that motion that we keep the sticker fee at $15.
to include what? You want to make it two separate motions?
I would like to make it two separate motions.
Okay.
I'll
The
second
first
that motion.
Motion's made and second. All those in favor of keeping the sticker fee at $15? Mr. Karen?
Is it aye?
Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. Now, the second motion would be what would be included in the sticker fee? The
What would be
disposal,
included or excluded?
What would be included? Obviously, what isn't included is excluded. Or do you want a motion that it,
It's all semantics.
right,
Yeah, right. I would make that motion that everything with the exception of textile be included in the
sticker fee?
sticker fee.
Do I have a second?
I'll second, but I have a question then. Are we going to limit this only to residents? And does that mean that the transfer station operator is going to have to check people's registrations?
Well, I think they do now, check licenses.
I don't, once you get the sticker, they don't
That-
check that anymore.
that's
They,
it. They-
you get the sticker on
The
your car. your truck.
daily, there's a per diem fee that I believe can apply to non-residents. But for the annual, the per diem fee is actually $15 per day. Like if it's a one-off. And then, but for residents, it's $15 per year for a year-long sticker. Like if I could, like I'm sorry, like one of the things with like the textile bins as well, that we're trying to take out of the stream as well is books. So if I, like, and that is, so in the same company that like is picking up the text, so the textiles for us is, like is also going to include books. So if we could include books in that as well, like it's all under the same umbrella, if that makes sense.
There's going to be a third bin for books. Although we will not be receiving any money for the books, it keeps it out of the
Stream.
stream.
So back to my original question then, will we be checking people's registrations? If they don't have a sticker,
Yep.
they're dropping off
Yes.
textiles or books, is the transfer operator going to check the just to make sure that they're residents, and if they're not residents,
Yeah,
I don't think we should be dropping stuff off, although we do make money on it, I get it, but I can just see sometimes
I
that they're
don't
being
just-
overwhelmed on those bins, so I would support this with the, as long as the transfer operator is making sure that it's residents that's dropping stuff off.
Right.
No, before we vote, regarding the bids, in the agreement, once they fill up, they come, or does he come once a week? So we could have an overflow.
Like it will be managed so there's never an overflow.
Oh, great.
We don't know how often they're going to have to come until it's established that they come once a week, once every 2 weeks. It's all going to depend on,
Trends in volume.
right? So I make the motion that everything it needs a sticker with the exception of textile
Textiles
and
and
books, if we're going to add books.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made in second. All those in favor? Mr. Karen?
Then I,
Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. Thank you. Next on the agenda, recommendation to appoint Dalton Johnson as Cable Television Committee member.
Oh, one of the things.
We've got
Chairman
B.
skipped
Oh,
some.
I'm sorry. Proposed adjustment to the police cruiser detail fee. Thank you very much, Mr. Mullin.
The spirit of fees and money, you might as well talk about this, right?
Yeah, sorry about
The chief's been very patient.
I guess so, I'm sorry you had
that.
to wait.
Sorry.
No problem at all. So what you see here is I have to thank my administrative assistant, Carlene. She brought to my attention that at some point in the past, it came to the selectmen to vote on a fee schedule for the use of detailed cruisers on third-party jobs. I don't know when it was. We tried to research it. We couldn't find it, but apparently it was $15 per hour for the duration of the job. I'm actually looking to change that to a flat rate. It's multi-layered, the reason why, but in looking at the budget, we're gonna be short on fuel, no question. And I know that we can't use the funds directly to offset that, but it's good to create a projection for FY '24 to see the usage and be able to potentially create a new line to use that money for maintenance and fuel. So the only way to actually get a proper measure is to do it in a flat rate, and then you can, you have all that, so you can evaluate and have your analysis, so you have a better idea of what your costs are actually gonna be. So the proposed rate, the proposed rate is $65 per day. That's whether it's 4 hours or whether it's 10 hours.
Right, that's what I was gonna ask you. Is there a limit to how many hours?
It's for the job.
Just for the job?
For the job, yeah. So, you wonder how I came up with that. I took a survey of area towns. It's right in the middle. It's right in the middle of where everybody is. There's some towns pretty interesting what their rates are and what they're charging. And I mean, like you pointed out tonight, costs are just out of whack everywhere. And we don't want to hurt anybody, but yet having the cars on the details is a huge safety advantage for us. Unfortunately, there's people that are on their phones, they're doing other things, and Main Street, I mean, you drive that at night, those machines are right on the road.
Yes.
So, yeah, so we just, it's a like I said, multi-layered. It's safety, it's being able to project out some costs and offset fuel, maintenance. And overall, we just haven't employed the program over the years for numerous reasons. We finally got all our cars back. They're operating, they're functioning, and we're using them, so.
How long is a typical detail?
We have, the majority of details are all 8 hours. That's the majority.
You would lose money by charging $65 a day.
You would, however, I've gone back and forth with this with myself. Overall, it's a better perception too. We're not looking to hurt these companies. What we've seen in the past is, and when I spoke to one department that actually charges $25 an hour, you'll get companies that try to sneak jobs in because they don't want to pay not only for the officer, but they don't want to pay for the detail. So when the cost goes up, you see some skirting going on. We don't want to get into that situation. We're pretty good in town. We work well with all of our detail vendors. So, but again, you may have a 4-hour detail, you may have a 2-hour detail. So it's going to come out in the wash. It's going to balance back and forth. And we just want to be fair about it.
There's no minimum detail, like if somebody, I need a detail, is there a minimum? I thought there was a minimum of 4 hours.
It is a minimum.
So there
of
won't be
4.
a 2-hour.
Well, what I'm saying is it's a minimum pay of 4.
For the officer.
The detail used to be per hour for the car. So now it's just a flat to encompass the 4, 6, 8. I think, Mr. Karen, to answer your question, if I did the average, I would say it's probably just a touch over 6 hours average per detail. Officer paid hours are different. There's 3 things that you have to look at. But I would say cruiser usage would probably be around the 6-hour mark.
Okay.
Chief, what line item does that money for the cruiser go into?
Right now, I believe it's general fund. Mr. Mullen, you can correct me on that, but I think it doesn't come back to us. It goes into general.
And to piggyback on that, one of the things that the chief is Alec is trying to take the reins on in the leadership on as well is Alec is making sure that even if that our revenue fund is in the general operating budget, I'm making sure that this program is implemented and there are revenues actually applied to that line as well. In terms of the accounting and in terms of the management and implementation of that program as well. And this would help it, so we could see, more long term, the active use of that revenue fund, and then be able to manage based on that as well.
Right. But in order to get that measure, we have to have a program.
Well, my question is, whether it be the police officer or the fee for the car, someone has to prepare a bill.
Yes.
Someone has to process the money. In the fees charged to the businesses, is there an administrative fee involved in that?
With the exception of town entities, yes.
No, I'm talking the police department in particular.
There's a 10% admin fee that goes along with the detailed bill, yes. And that also goes back to general, I believe.
Okay, no, that's very helpful, thank you. Are there any further questions?
Nope.
I'll entertain a motion to change the flat rate cruiser fee of $15 per hour to a flat rate fee of $65 per day.
I'll make that motion.
Motion-
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor, Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Mr. Karen?
It's an aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. Thank you. And again, I'm sorry.
No. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Okay.
Two.
good night. Next on the agenda, review, discuss, and act the recommendation to appoint Dalton Johnson as Cable Television Committee member.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor? Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Ms. Karen?
It's an aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. Motion passes. Next on the agenda, Paul Pacheco, Board of Health, Ethics Disclosure. Before we begin, I want to thank Mr. Pacheco for being here this evening. And there were several issues, major issue with the Board of Health, and it's good to see someone from the Board of Health here this evening to represent the board. You are a special municipal employee. You also, you are not a mayor, alderman, or city councilor, and by the classification of your position, by municipal agency, or by the terms of a contract or conditions of employment, I am permitted to have personal or private employment during normal business hours. Could you explain what interests that you have with the town that have required you to provide us with this disclosure statement, just for the public record? If you could come up to the podium.
Over the years, as I've been doing signs, right now I'm in a project with the building inspector, Mr. Mullen, to do main sign out front here. I've lettered police cruisers, I've done work for the fire department, I've done work for the street department, council on aging. I give a whole list of departments that I have done. And I want to continue doing those services as I've done. And, you know, my prices, I keep them down. They don't have to give me the job. They're still, you know, they can go out and price the job to anybody they want. But I didn't want my ability to not be able to do business with the town, with my sign business, a conflict.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Mullen, Mr. Pacheco is, Town Clerk Mark Pacheco is the person who is involved in overseeing ethics, rules, and regulations. Has he weighed in on this?
He, so here the town clerk is responsible for maintaining the up-to-date designations of all boards and committee members and employees. But if there is an employee board or committee member that does have a conflict, a potential conflict or a perceived conflict, the law actually requires that employee, that position, does need to have the approval, of the appointing authority or the selectmen, and they need to approve, that the board, does like accept the disclosure and they approve, that they approve the disclosure. So then, once the disclosure is approved, if it is approved, then like it is the town clerk's responsibility to file that and keep that on file as well.
So once we vote, there really cannot be any objections by state official, state ethics commission?
Yes, and yes, yeah, like, yeah, like a, oh yes, like a, oh yes, like a, at that point, Mr. Pacheco and the town, like, would have done, they're transparent and due diligence, and, like, and at that point, everything will be responsibly, like, addressed and taken care of.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions?
I have no question.
Just one question. You don't have a contract with
Well,
ongoing,
I spoke with the attorney from the Ethics Committee, and he said, just a verbal saying do the job is a contract.
okay.
But no, I do not have written contracts.
No, what I meant was, there's no ongoing that they have to only do business with you.
No.
Okay.
No. In fact, the form there was 20D. He also told me to to read through 23. 23 basically spells out the rules and regulations of what I can do. Give an example, I can't come in and use the Board of Health's copy machine because I need copies for my business. I can't go out and tell somebody, put the pressure on them, say, well, I'm a member of the Board of Health. Now, don't you want me to buy a sign for me? No. It's got to be separate. And like I said, there's no obligations. The town does not have to do business with me. But I have been doing business with them, and if it's their choice, then I'd like to continue. Also, to add, this paperwork is going to stay in Dayton. There's no need, it's not, I don't have to submit it to Boston. What's going to happen, though, is if somebody says, well, Paul's doing a sign, and he's also on the Board of Health, I feel it's conflict of interest, so they call Boston. They're going to call down to probably Mark Pacheco, the clerk, and say, what's going on? And he's going to say, well, there was a disclosure that he filled out. The selectmen voted on it, if you decide to vote on it. And then they go, okay, it's all been out in the open. That's what it's all about, is, getting it out in the open first and getting your permission. The only other thing is, Mr. Muller, I had the paperwork in before I even got appointed, because there was different ways of filling it out, and there's a 30-day limit on it. So if it's going to get approved tonight, fine. If it's going to get tabled, then I'm going to have to resign on Board of Health, because I can't go without this.
Okay. Are there any further questions?
I have no questions.
I will entertain a motion to approve the disclosure by special municipal employee of financial interest in a municipal contract as required by Mass General Law, Chapter 268A, Section 20D.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor, Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Mr. Karen?
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I look forward to
Take care.
doing business with these in both aspects.
Thanks, bud.
Next on the agenda, ratify library exterior renovations contract and on-call carpentry contract with Plan B Construction Company. Mr. Mullen or Mr. Pacheco? I'm not sure.
I don't mind speaking on this. As I noted earlier, the library committee agreed to recommend this to the Board of Selectmen that they hire Plan B Construction Company to do the exterior work, and it's in detail as to what they're required to do, what the cost is going to be. We've asked that they put the, if you remember, when we first discussed doing the exterior, I talked about they had told us that it would be $1,100 to a square to put red cedar shingles, the cost of just the red cedar shingles, not counting the labor. And if you've ever put shingles on a house, you know it's very intensive work. You put one little shingle up at a time, which we thought was kind of high. This company came in with a figure of $29,000 to do the red cedar shingles on the exterior, including labor, which is very good, which would keep the building look historic. Right now, it's got cedar shingles on it. Those are the original cedar shingles. They need to be replaced. If you go over there and take a look at them, well, we've all been there, so you know how bad they are. But those shingles are over 100 years old, and they were able to stay on that building for over 100 years old. So it was a unanimous recommendation of the library committee to ask that we go with Plan B construction with the attachment or the addendum or whatever you want to call it, of $29,000 for a total cost of $248,000 and $232, if that's
Yes.
that figure is correct.
Yes, it is.
And they are to begin work tomorrow, and they need to be done for the exterior by the end of June. We've also asked, when these companies came at the meeting we had on October 26th at the library, if they could give us a cost for labor for carpenters to do some interior work. And they provided us with, this company has provided us with that. We wanted to do that so we didn't have to go out with a second bid. And we all know cost goes up, so we wanted to get something, find out now. Now, that part of it, that money hasn't been allocated by the town yet for the interior work, so we can't, I don't know how we want to do this. We can accept maybe the figures that they've given us, but we're not actually going to hire them at this point until we get funding.
So yeah, like we have the ability to contract with them now. We do with the total budget. The total budget right now that we're working off of is $350,000. That includes the $150,000 that was approved by the town at the annual town meeting, plus the $200,000 that Senator Pacheco and Rep. Haddad secured in the state budget. So we do have a budget of $350,000 right now. The cost of the siding contract, like with the additive alternate, is $248,000. So we do, we do have a little bit of flexibility through the winter, and even internally, on an internal basis, using our own town of Dayton employees to begin some of the demo work as well. But we do have roughly $100,000 budget to begin that process as well. So we do have the upfront money, really like seed money. But on a very parallel track, we're also going to be working on a CPC application as well. That will hopefully we're hoping at the annual town meeting, which will provide the real path we need to get the interior improvements done.
Yes, and we're going to start that process with CPC, I believe, starting in January.
Yes.
Joe Shea, our engineer, will be meeting with, as well as myself and maybe some other members of the library committee, will be starting the process with CPC so that we have an idea as to how much it's going to cost, how much we're going to request. We may not have that answer in January, but we'll have it shortly after that. We got to remember that we got a great deal on the building. Just a neighboring town, I won't mention the town, but a neighboring town just approved $18 million for their library. The state's going to give them $6 million, I think, and then the town's going to pay the rest of that.
Right.
We had an opportunity, we put in for a grant to add on to our library, Andrew Carnegie Building, and the town has approved, but not funded yet. They have a list. When we get to that, our number comes up, we were 11 the last I knew. We get there, then we have to decide whether or not we want to go forward with it. They were going to give us $4 million, and we had to come up with $4 million to do the addition. That's at money, figures from 5, 6, 7 years ago. Cost of labor's gone up. We definitely know that the cost of lumber has gone up a lot. So it would have cost the town a lot more money. I would say almost double, probably $8 million. If we just add on to the Andrew Carnegie Library, I know I'm talking to the choir here in a sense, And that was just for 20 years. They estimate if we do that addition, it's going to be good for 20 years. You don't have the parking there, we don't have a lot of that other stuff, so I think we ought to approve this contract. I'm a big, we had all the members, we talked about the cedar shingles, we all supported it, we liked the look of it. Mr. Aguirre, who's our building commissioner, he was also in favor of it, that we go with that, so I would ask the board to approve this Plan B construction company as well as the monies.
So it's gonna be Cedar, and they have until when to complete it? January or June?
June. Did I say January? June 30th. So if we approve it today, tomorrow they can begin. I don't
Right.
think they're gonna go there tomorrow, but they're gonna order supplies, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And the owners, the people, the church right now is still in the building, so they're aware of what's gonna be done on the exterior.
Right.
And they're gonna give us permission to go inside if we need to go inside. But I believe it's on January 27th, they're vacating that building anyway, so we can begin the work. It's still a long process for us to complete the library. Sometime in 2024, we're gonna cut the ribbon. Hopefully, 3 of us will be there to cut the ribbon. So I'm looking forward to that. But this is the beginning process. They were the only bid, but they come highly recommended. If you looked at the different towns, Martha's Vineyard, down the Cape, work that they've done.
Yeah.
They've done work for the town, and Jim Aguirre, building commissioner, speaks highly of this company. They're very reliable company. So unfortunately, they were the only bids. We can't compare it to anybody
Right.
else. That's
But it's an
upsetting,
acceptable bid.
Yes.
I think it's a reasonable bid. It's kind of what we thought would cost.
Yeah.
And they came in, like I said, the cedar shingles, a lot less than, was $1,100 per square, about 32 squares, so that's $35,000, $36,000. Never mind the labor.
Right.
Competitors, if you see, they're getting paid $100 an hour prevailing wages, or $120. So it's a lot of, would have been a lot more. So I'm pleased with the figures that they came in.
Great.
So
I make the motion to approve.
Well, we have 2 motions necessary. One to approve the company, but do we also have to approve siding?
I think we can do it all at one if
Yes.
we can make a motion to
Yeah,
approve.
there were actually 2 contracts, so one specifically
Okay,
for
so-
the 248 for the siding, and then a separate contract for the on-call carpentry services.
Yes.
So we'll need to do 2 separate motions.
So motion one would be to approve Plan B as the construction company?
Yes.
If I could just add,
On-call carpentry contract with Plan B Construction Company.
Right. So I make that motion.
if I could just add a friendly amendment, not to exceed $248,232, and this is to be completed by June 30th, 2023. And I'll second that. If you accept that amendment,
Yes,
I'll
I do.
second that motion.
Motion has been made and second. All those in favor, Mr. Karen?
Aye.
Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. Now I'll entertain a motion to ratify the library exterior renovation contract.
I make that motion.
Then isn't that, that's
Well-
what we just did, but now we're talking about the second contract is the
Is the
interior.
interior.
Right, did we,
Yeah, I think the votes are getting confused. What I would recommend is a new motion to approve a contract with Plan B in the amount of $248,000, $232, for the library exterior project to be completed by June 30th of 2023. That would be the first motion.
We did that.
I think that's what we did. We did not mention exterior. if that's
Yeah,
what
I
we-
think it was mixed up because there was the mention of on-call in the first motion, and and the on-call would be in the second contract.
So
Sorry.
I'll withdraw my second on that motion if it's okay with the chairman, and
Right.
so we'll withdraw the motion.
Thank you. So the motion should read to approve the contract with Plan B Construction?
Yes, in the amount, for exterior siding, in the amount of $248,232, with a completion date by June 30th, 2023.
Do I have that in the form of motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second. All those in favor? Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Mr. Karen?
It's an aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. Now, the second motion,
Would be a motion to approve a contract for on-call carpentry, for, the term of December 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2023, with 2 one-year options for renewal at the sole discretion of the town.
I'll make that motion.
So the contract can go 13 months?
Yes.
Okay. Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor? Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Mr. Karen?
Is an aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. Next on the agenda, review, discuss, and act Dayton Cultural Council fiscal year 23 allocation contract.
And this is fairly straightforward, Mr. Chairman. This is the annual grant that comes to the Dayton Cultural Council by way of the town in the amount of $7,300.
I'll entertain a motion to approve, you said $7,200?
$7,300.
$7,300. To approve the Dayton Cultural Council fiscal year 23 allocation contract for the sum of $7,300.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor? Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Mr. Karen?
Is an aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. Review, discuss, and act to appoint to the Fire Station Building Committee Justin Dagno, firefighter representative, and Kyle Maderas, call firefighter representative.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Aye. Mr. Karen?
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor? Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Mr. Karen?
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. Review, discuss, and act proposed January to June 2023 Board of Selectmen meeting schedule. Are there any questions?
I don't have any.
No, I
Now, as we look over the schedule, do any of you have any conflicts in regards to vacations?
No, I'm, the December 28th meeting, I'll be Zoom, but that's this
sorry?
year. That's this year, not next year.
Oh, okay, next year, no. So, no vacations planned during those dates?
Not at this time, no.
No.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion to approve the January to June 2023 Board of Selectmen meeting schedule.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor, Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Mr. Karen?
Is an aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. Public input, we don't have, Mr. Vincent? No. Okay. Mr. Rooney will be
Yeah, he is joining us for
in a
something
few
after.
minutes. Okay, any correspondence?
None.
No correspondence, minutes. Approval of the Board of Selectmen regular meeting minutes of September 14th, 2022.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor, Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Mr. Karen?
Is an aye.
Motion, Chairman Hull is an aye. Motion passes. Approval of the warrants.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the warrants for dated November 16, 2022, 20A-23, $108,741.58. 20B-23, $261,063.73. And 20C-23, $2,842,314.25.
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Pacheco, Ms. Karen?
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that the Board of Selectmen approve the warrants dated November 23rd, 2022. 21A-23, $116,239.07. 21B-23, $19,489.51. And 21C-23, $737.55.98.
Second.
Motion made in second. All those in favor? Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Mr. Karen?
Aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that the Board of Selectmen approve the warrants dated November 30th, 2022. 22A-23, $124,644.56, and 22B-23, $75,456.31.
Second.
Motion made in second. All those in favor? Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Mr. Karen?
Is an aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. We will be going into executive session, and we will not be returning to an open session. Under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining of litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. A, Dayton Town Clerical Union. B, Town of Rehoboth versus Dayton Rehoboth Regional School District. Also, under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, subsection 6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real estate if the chair declares, he does, that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body in regards to the Williams Street property. And also, under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A, subsection 7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law of federal grant and aid requirements. And also, executive session minutes for special executive session meeting of September 14th, 2022, and approval of the Board of Selectmen's executive session meeting minutes of October 26, 2022.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion made in second. All those in favor, Mr. Pacheco?
Aye.
Mr. Karen?
Is an aye.
Chairman Hull is an aye. Good evening,
Good night.
and thank you.